First of all, thank you very much for having us and for your time. I know it's a busy week for you. I know you said you want to record this interview also for your archive. I also understood that you're not going to publish that before we do.
That's correct.
That's correct. And yeah, first of all, I'd like to get a better understanding of Project Veritas and of where we are currently exactly. So if you can try to explain us a bit the structure of this office, how many employees do you have? How do you work? If you can talk.
Well, we have about a staff of about 50, and we have many undercover people in the United States. Some of the people are not currently in that number of 50 people, but are inside of institutions that we recruit. So we have agents inside of various organizations, big tech, education, media, currently working with us to ferret out waste, fraud, and abuse. We have a very professional operation, as you can see. We have producers and editors and lawyers and working together to do this guerrilla journalism, because we believe that the only way you're going to get people to open up is by going into the shadows, by going behind closed doors and really showing what people are saying when they don't realize that they're being taped. That's when people open up. That's when people are the most honest, to quote CNN's Chris Cuomo when he talked about our hidden camera tapes. So American Prov is out yesterday, and it tells the story, the triumphs and tragedies and travails of independent journalists who take on the most powerful people in the world, and the moral courage that it takes to do that.
Mm-hmm. How did you find your targets? How do you choose them?
Well, I've been inspired a lot by what muckrakers have done throughout the 20th century. Injustices in the world that other people won't expose, areas of vital public interest, areas where reforms can be made. Upton Sinclair went after the meatpacking plants in the United States, not because he didn't like meat, but because he cared about workers' rights. And a lot of people in Chicago in the 1970s went undercover to expose waste and graft and corruption, or they cared about the neediest people in Chicago. So at Veritas, I believe that there's a lot of corruption in society. There's a lot of lies that our politicians tell us, like when they say the border is secure. I mean, that's laughable. That's demonstrably false. So we go to the border. I dress up like Osama bin Laden in battle fatigues, and I cross the Rio Grande River. And I embarrass, we humiliated the people in the government. And in response, they retaliate against me. And I tell that story of being detained at airports, being targeted by my own government for exposing lies. So it's not about the techniques that we use. It's not about anything except certain narratives, certain falsehoods that are propagated in our society that need to be contested with truth. And what it takes to do that. It's not about the techniques, not in the abstract it isn't. It's about what we expose that they don't want exposed.
My question was, how do you choose certain reporters? Do you have maybe a list of reporters that you think are not doing their job well? Or how do you, you have to decide at one point.
Well, they choose, that would be like asking Pam Zekman at the Chicago Sun-Times, Pulitzer Prize winner, how she chose which city inspector that attempted to bribe the bar that she ran undercover. They chose you. You choose a theme, maybe it may be CNN, and we go undercover, we have people embedded for months, and suddenly, like you're sifting a sand in a sifter, the gold rises to the bottom. In shoe leather journalism, your sources sometimes find you. Your targets sometimes find you.
You're talking a lot in your book also about the bias of the media. Do you think or would you say that you're biased yourself? Because it seems that you're targeting mostly liberal organizations and media.
Well, I would say that the most important thing for a reporter to be is factual. And if you want the standard to be that reporters shouldn't have bias, again, you have to look throughout the 20th century. Gunther Wohlrich, who I think I read about in this book a little, he was cared about workers' rights, okay? He had a very explicit agenda. When you Google him, he's an undercover reporter. When you Google me, I'm an activist. Well, if I'm an activist, wouldn't Gunther Wohlrich be an activist? His specifically motivation was to care about the workers and help the union and in the bill.
Do you have an agenda?
Again, would you ask that question of Günter Wohlrich?
I would, yes.
Okay, well, my agenda is the truth. My agenda is facts. I don't care about conjecture. I don't care about my opinion. I care about facts. And I have gone after Republicans. I've gone after the president of the Wisconsin State Senate. If I have an agenda, it's, I believe, the only thing that I care about that's not just exposing is the First Amendment. I care deeply about that. Now that has made me a right-winger, a conservative, to care deeply about freedom of thought and freedom of conscience.
So you feel misunderstood about that when people...
Certainly. And people say, well, why are you complaining about the media? Because the media still has tremendous power in this country. As long as they can run Chiron for a week about race and about some of Russia, they have tremendous power. And I do think that Veritas is misunderstood, but I think the only way we're going to change that is to keep doing what we're doing.
Tell me, what's wrong with the Washington Post, in your opinion?
What's wrong with the media? I saw this movie, The Post, with Tom Hanks playing Ben Bradley. And Ben Bradley goes, if we don't hold them accountable, who will? He's talking about, I guess, Richard Nixon. They no longer are willing to go after the way that they used to. They're no longer to do the sort of muckraking journalism. They can't go after Twitter. They can't go after, they can't hold the media accountable. When Ben Bradley said, if we're not going to hold them accountable, who will? That's what I say about the media. If
you get a reporter in a private situation, in a bar, talking about his thoughts, what is the truth in
Well,
there?
I'll tell you that Adam Entus and Dan Lamothe was the other national security reporter, he apologized for being honest. So Dan Lamothe's reaction to what he said, his comment, was to confirm that he was being truthful. Okay? Oftentimes a target or a source, when you get them behind closed doors, they'll tell the truth.
But what's the importance of that? If a reporter has a private opinion and articulates that in
a bar, if it's truthful opinion, and his statement is truthful, which he says it was when he said, "I'm sorry for telling the truth." If the reporter says something truthful, then what it does is it shows that the op-ed page of his newspaper, he said, the op-ed people, I don't know what they're grounding their opinions in. I can't believe I work at this place, is what Dan Lamothe said. So if he's saying that the people at his op-ed page are not grounding their Russia stories in facts, then he is damning or condemning what his op-ed page is saying. Now, people would say, well, James, don't you know the difference between an op-ed page and facts? I would say that's precisely the problem. All of our media today is opinion and conjecture and narrative because that's what sells. That's the commodity. That's the product. That's what's going to get the advertising. Okay? And you have the subject matter experts for these newspapers, which are condemning most of what they're putting out, and then they apologize for being honest. I have a problem with that. I think it's exposing something highly important. And again, why are we doing it? Because the media has more powerful than Congress, than the legislature, and even the President of the United States.
I'd like to understand a bit better the objective, so I picked some examples. Let's talk about the Roy Moore story and the coverage by the Washington Post. Was that, after all, a success for you, that story?
Well, I think the videos of Adam Entus and Dan Lamothe were revealing and important, but sometimes when you do undercover work, you get burned. I'm sure Günter Wohlrich was burned. He writes about being burned. When the stings get interrupted, like they did in Louisiana or the Washington Post, people jump to wild conclusions. For example, in that case, they said that I intended to plant a fake story. I did not intend to plant a fake story. We used the alias to draw someone out into a meeting to talk about politics. You want confirmation of that? Watch the video that the Washington Post published of the meeting between the so-called rape victim and the reporter. She was constantly asking about politics. The aliases that we used in the Twitter sting were arguably more hardcore than a rape victim. Nobody seems to care. You can't evaluate the utility.
I watched that interview, and I can recall that she asked about the impact the story would have, and not really about politics.
Watch the whole thing, and I can send you the quotes. The objective of the. By the way, I think it's ironic that the Washington Post reported my intent. They just falsely printed my intent was to plant a fake story. I never intended that.
But why then did she go there to tell them a false story?
Well, you need to look up undercover in a dictionary. We use aliases to obtain meetings with people in order to draw them out, to get them to tell us the truth about what they think about the world.
So you just wanted to talk about politics?
Why would I, we pose as terrorists, drug dealers, pimps, hookers, child abuse victims, child abusers, rape victims, members of gay groups. We pose as something we're not in order to get a meeting with someone, to get them to trust us, so that we could ask about, for example, what are their thoughts on Senate races in the United States?
But did you think about discrediting other people who would go actually to a reporter to tell a story of a sexual abuse?
No,
and who would then get no more...
I find that criticism of me ridiculous. What is wrong? If you're suggesting that it's unethical to pose as a rape victim, I would ask why? How do you evaluate the utility of the ends or the utility of the means without evaluating the utility of what we are actually exposing? What if Bethany...
Because you discredit like this all the other victims that are real victims, in fact.
No, that's not true. Rolling Stone discredited victims of rape by publishing a fake story. Rolling Stone and the mainstream media has done more to discredit rape victims than anything that I could ever do. They published fake news and they retracted the whole story. The media has admitted to lying, and nobody seems to care. If Project Veritas does not hold the media accountable, who will? And by the way, the constant attacks and criticisms of me are just a badge of honor, because I know the media cannot abide me. I know they hate my guts. You want to know why? Because I'm going after them, and they don't want to be exposed. But you know what? Because they've been consolidated and they care about profits and ratings more than they do the truth, they need to be exposed. Again, not a right-wing philosophy. Go ask Noam Chomsky and he'd say the same thing.
So just to be clear, the mission you instructed Jamie Phillips with was just to talk about politics and not to get the Post to write a false story.
I know that you're just doing your job here, and I think you want a nugget. O'Keefe says rape victim, but that mission. It's not a binary...
Actually, I would like to understand what was the mission about.
I've told you twice. Now you're asking a third time. You're asking the question 3 times because you don't accept my answer. You don't want to... You don't want...
I totally accept your answer.
You don't want to believe. You don't believe. I've been through this 5 times with journalists. You don't accept the truth. The truth was, I was trying to expose the partisan bias and the politics of this newspaper. For example, if the reporter were to say, yes, we have a specific agenda to elect Democrats. That would be very interesting, would it not? She could say that. Or if she said, you know what, I know that what you're saying is, like when I did the undercover story in Media Matters, I said, now this information about Trump is not real, but would you run it? Yeah, because we don't care about the truth. Now that would be a big story. I never intended to plant a fake story. I submitted an op-ed to the Washington Post where I said, this was my intent, and they wouldn't run it. I flirted with a defamation lawsuit against the Washington Post because they didn't care about what my intent was. And every time that a journalist interviews about me, they don't care about the truth because they have a predetermined narrative about what they want the people to believe about me.
Why did you want to get a CNN reporter, Abby, on a boat with hidden cameras then, filled with sex toys and the plan to hit at her all the time? Why was that?
Well, that was misreported. Again, is there a video released of any of these things? It seems like...
There's the documents released of Project Veritas.
Documents. So it seems like the media is only interested in things that never came to fruition. There's no actual investigation of that. The media wanted to do is... I don't take the media seriously. I don't take them seriously for this specific reason that they don't take our very important, significant research seriously. CNN wanted to do a documentary, hit piece on me, and I said, I'm not going to participate in your games. I won't be their dancing monkey. I'm not going to play their games. And they feel very threatened by Project Veritas, which is why they ran this was like, I think you're asking about this Right on the Edge in 2010, some 8 years ago. President Trump mentioned our videos in a debate with Hillary Clinton. I've got the CEO of Twitter responding to our video yesterday. I've got some of the most powerful people in the world are taking me on, and you're asking me about a boat documentary where she asked me to, where I wanted to give her strawberries and champagne. John Oliver and Jon Stewart have done far more silly things. I don't take them seriously.
But I ask you about what you did.
Yes.
And what you did in your early
years
at Project Veritas.
And I have precious few minutes to share with your audience the great work that we're doing. And I don't really have a comment about CNN's hour-long documentary hit piece from 7 years ago. I don't take them seriously. And I want to send them that message. And you know what else I don't care about? I don't fear the media. I don't fear them the way that most Americans do. I don't fear their power to humiliate and shame, because I have to send a message to people that we have the courage to continue here. Then that they can come after me, they can call me names. The only thing that matters to the American people is that I take my 50 to 100 undercover people and embed them everywhere. That's what we're going to do. And I'm a young guy. I've been doing this for 5 years. Our budget has doubled every year for the last 5 years. I have 1,000 people applying to be undercover journalists, and I am inside their big tech companies. I am inside their media companies. And they are never going to stop me, ever. I don't care how many hit pieces, tax returns they go through. Every time they come after me, it just makes us bigger. It's like the Death Star when they fire a missile into us. So they can lie and deceive about intent. Every question you're going to ask me is about things I didn't actually do. Videos I've never released. Fine, we'll keep going. And they're making us more donations come in too every time they write one of these hit pieces. So CNN, Washington Post, I've gone after them, they've gone after me. It's just part of it.
You also describe what things you and Donald Trump have in common.
Yes, we do.
I'd like you to ask, what is that exactly, what you have in common?
I think it's a synergy to circumvent the mainstream media. If there's one virtue about this president, he does hold the media to account. He does go after the media, rightly so. I agree with his assessment that in many ways, the media has become an enemy of the American people. They are in their own little cocoon.